So like I mentioned in past videos, I'm really a product of 14 years of experience in the music industry. All the way back from making beats in my college dorm room to working with Grammy-nominated multi-platinum artists and building a six-figure business. But there was a lot that happened in between that time, and that's where all the good stuff happens. So in this video, I'm gonna share with you a little bit of my background and my history and kind of use myself as a case study to show you how I built a brand in the music industry. Because honestly, there's really no better testimonial that I can give you guys than myself, because I'm literally someone that started from the same position that you're in. So in the last 4 videos, we already covered the blueprint of building a personal brand. I walked you through how to start doing that, laid it out for you, gave you some good information along the way before we really start to dig in. So if you haven't watched those videos yet, pause this one, go back, watch those videos first, and it'll be super helpful, I promise. So now we're gonna take things in a different direction, and I'm gonna walk you through my journey and my past of being a music producer, working with all these different artists, and honestly, how I spent my career being around those different artists, being around other producers, other labels, execs, and people in the music industry. So those first couple years, like I said, really started in my college dorm room, and that's where I spent most of my time just trying to perfect my craft. So a lot like how an artist might have a notepad or, write in their phone lyrics to songs, that was a lot like how I was doing in my college dorm room, except I got a pirated version of FL Studio and I was just experimenting, making beats. And actually, pretty soon after I started making beats, I didn't know any rappers at the time, so I actually started rapping over my own beats. And as soon as I had enough music to record a short EP, I was going out to the local Philly hip hop scene. That's where I was at the time, going to college. I was going out to the local Philly hip hop scene and getting my feet wet and just getting experience performing in front of really small crowds at crappy little bars and open mics. But that was really the first big hurdle for me, because I was this kind of quiet, shy, introverted kid, and here I was like going out to a city that I wasn't really familiar with, meeting new people that I didn't know, and getting on a stage and performing this new music that I had just recorded from my dorm room in front of people that I didn't know. And let me tell you, those experiences were some of the most nerve-wracking experiences of my entire career, but it taught me so much about getting outside of my comfort zone and doing things that I'm not typically used to doing. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I was developing my superpower, as I called it in the first video. I was learning to develop and identify what my core strengths were. So fast forward from there, dropped out of college, relocated to Atlanta where my family had recently moved to, and all of a sudden, totally, I'm in a brand new city. And not only that, but the sound that was coming out of the city and from the music there was totally different than the sound that I was used to creating and listening to in Philadelphia. All of a sudden, I was dropped into this crazy down south, southern hip hop mecca, and it was totally different. At that time, it was like all snap music, and Soulja Boy was kind of like bubbling in the scene and making a lot of noise. But this is where I started to develop a lot of my early relationships with artists and other producers and other creatives, because Atlanta was such a hotbed for talent. And so on the weekends, I'd be going out to these showcases and events and shows and open mics, and I'd be promoting myself on the internet, on Facebook and on MySpace. And so this whole period was really the time where I was identifying and building my brand. I was starting to really build my brand. So eventually I stopped rapping. I hung up that hat to start focusing more on production, because I was meeting so many artists and they all needed beats. So I started focusing more heavily on the production, and I came across this one artist named Jaron Benton. And almost instantly we clicked, we got in the studio, started working on music together. And within a few years from that, he had gotten signed to one of the biggest indie hip hop labels in the game, Funk Volume. And shortly after he signed as an artist, I was offered an in-house production deal. So I signed about a year later as an in-house producer for Funk Volume. And so I consider that kind of like the next chapter in my music career. And this whole experience really opened my eyes to what the music industry and what my career as a producer could really be. And so keep in mind, at this time, I wasn't really monetizing my music. I was still in the building phase of trying to build my brand and perfect my craft and really work on the music. And this was probably maybe like 6 years, 5 or 6 years after I'd initially started making beats there in my college dorm room. So like financially, it was still really tough for me. I was still like working regular 9-to-5 day jobs, just trying to pay my bills, and I was barely getting by every single month. And here I was, this producer on this really hot independent label, and I was starting to build my brand on that end. So eventually, I quit my 9-to-5 job, went all in with the music, totally dropped out of school, and I was just able to get on the road and start touring with Jaron. And at that time, he was becoming more and more popular. His music was really getting out there. I was like his main producer, producing, 75% or more of all of his music, executive producing his projects. And at the same time, I was starting to get my name out there and start working with artists outside of the label and getting my production credits up. And I was also really starting to understand the importance of building an online presence. So I was starting to get active on social media because I saw how important that was. And particularly with the artists on the label, I just learned a lot about how to engage with an audience online. And, they were on social media every single day, just talking to the fans, doing live streams, posting on Instagram and Twitter. And I was still trying to figure out my brand as a producer at the time. And so I was really at that time kind of subconsciously building a blueprint of how I would later on use those same strategies that the artists were using on the label, having all these experiences touring and being so close with the artists and the label, and understanding slowly how I could start to use that for my own career as a producer. So, we were riding high for a couple years. I was just soaking up every minute of the experience. And you know what they say, all good things must come to an end. And eventually it did. And the whole ride came to a crashing end, a very public fallout due to some inner conflict with the two co-founders of the label, and pretty much overnight the whole label dissolved. So it was really crazy because I went from the highest point in my career at that time to the absolute lowest point. And just like how those first shows where I was performing in Philly kind of forced me to get outside of my comfort zone, I was once again forced to get outside of my comfort zone and figure out what was the next step in my career as a producer. I just started applying everything that I learned from those experiences into this new kind of chapter in my career as a producer, in particular using social media to start engaging with my small audience that I had built online at that time, and really taking that to the next level. So during that time, after the label dissolved, I was at the lowest point in my career, but I was really trying to get active on social media, posting every single day. Not a day went by where I wasn't posting, where I wasn't engaging with fans directly, one-on-one, replying to every single person, DMing. I remember I was even calling people on the phone, just like trying to build real authentic engagement and relationships with my audience and my fans. And it really shaped the way that I thought about using social media. It went from a tool where I would just share my music with the world to a tool where I would build relationships with my audience. And then through just surrounding myself with the right people, I eventually learned how to monetize different aspects of my music and my brand. And somehow, many, many years later, 10 plus years later, I find myself here now talking to this camera, talking to you guys. Still on my feet and with a successful career and a full-fledged business in the music industry that generates, over 6 figures a year. And so I know that was long-winded, but I really wanted to, show you how someone from my position who could literally start with nothing, a cracked version of FL Studio in his dorm room, to getting to this point now, right here. And that is proof right there that if I can do it, then anyone else can. So now imagine that I walk you through all of those really critical, pivotal moments and all the lessons that I've learned and all the experiences that I've had, and cram that into a course. And that's essentially what Music Branding Mastery is all about. You can basically learn everything that I learned over that decade plus just watching it from your computer, and it'll save you a lot of time and money. A really, really important gem that I learned over the years is that the best results come in small doses. And so I've learned that it's impossible and really difficult for me to support large groups of people with this type of experience. So I've made it a point to keep this course and this whole experience very small and intimate so that you get the most out of it. So Music Branding Mastery will be served on a first come, first served basis. And I've dedicated months to creating, developing this course so that it's the best possible experience for you. And I'm telling you right now, spots are gonna fill up really fast. So you're gonna have to stay super alert as soon as enrollment opens. So in the next and the final video, I'm gonna give you specific details on how to make sure you get in the course, plus all of the bonuses that it's gonna come with. And I'm also gonna share some final details about the course and why it's different from anything you've ever experienced. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned.